Sinjuri, insemmilkom, nirringrazzjakom li qed tissegwu il-programm. Sa nibqgħu bil-ġrajiet kurrenti u l-elezzjonijiet tal-Parlament Ewropew u tal-Kunsilli Lokali u għalhekk sa nibqgħu inlaqqawkom mal-kandidati tal-elezzjoni tal-Parlament Ewropew. L-ewwel sa nibdew billi nintaqgħu mali Bugeja u mbagħad sa nintaqgħu ma' Peter Agius. Inħeġġiġkom li fit-8 ta' Ġunju toħorġu tivvutaw għal kandidati kollha tal-Partit Nazzjonalista. How's your campaigning going?
It's going well. For a short campaign and relatively new phase for the Nationalist Party, it's going pretty well. I've had a very good response so far. Obviously, the work is intense and lots to be done. On social media, on debates on television, on debates on radio. I'm building also new relationships, especially with the newer candidates and strengthening my relationships with existing members of the European Parliament. And even sometimes members of parliament, they give you feedback, they text you, they call you, and I think it's very positive and nice. So there's a lot to be learned from politics and campaigning.
What's important to you in this campaign, and what would be important to you should you be elected as an MEP?
Yes, Leah, on the 15th of March, I announced the pledges, which are ambitious, but I strongly believe in. The first one would be to make the access to affordable property, especially for Maltese and Gosling youths, as a right, and shine it as a right EU-wide. So the right to affordable property. We're seeing an increasing property prices market that is also even now worrying people within the property market and the real estate. This is also putting a strain on young couples, whether they decide to have kids. And a young couple deciding not to have kids, not because they don't want to, but because they really can't afford a good standard of living, a good quality of life, while also raising children, has very, very serious consequences. Sustaining population growth and having a good birth rate is very, very essential to sustaining the economy. The second would be to get as much resources and funds to make alternative means of transport in Malta possible. We've seen major upgrades in terms of flyovers, widening of lanes, resurfacing of roads, etc. But given that the population has increased so much and continues to increase with the current projections, there are serious bottlenecks and in some cases total stagnation.
You speak about the growth in population. What are your views on immigration?
Yes, this has become a hot topic as well, and the latest statistics issued by the EU show that the Maltese look at migration as a hot topic. So I think there is serious challenges that we as politicians and political candidates, we need to pay very, very close attention to. In addition to that, we're seeing the challenges in terms of the communication. Because of EU nationals now has become an even bigger problem because they are served by third country nationals who are coming obviously Malta legally with a work permit and everything, and even their English is worse.
I think the problem is they don't speak English well, and they don't speak Maltese at all.
At all, exactly.
So where does that leave the Maltese citizens?
So Maltese citizens are actually now grieving the loss of the Maltese language. I know it's a strong word, but it's necessary that we reinforce it. They're grieving the loss of the Maltese language. And they are also frustrated. Most of the Maltese population know how to speak English well, but still the mother tongue remains predominantly Maltese. And when we express emotion, it's predominantly in Maltese across the Maltese population. So we need to take care of it and look at this type of economy we want, the population growth and direction we're headed towards, the type of jobs we want to attract, and the future of Malta that we want to, including the safeguard of the Maltese language.
You're speaking about our language, yet you and I are having this conversation in English. I'd like to make it clear to our viewers that the reason we're doing this is there's quite a lot of people who are able to vote and actually only speak English.
This is a very good point. And just because someone decides to speak in English, for various reasons. Sometimes at school they speak English. Now students preferring to speak in English because at school they have to speak in English because there's a number of children who are EU nationals and don't know Maltese. Sometimes, and I say this really with a heavy heart, we don't realize just how special and unique Maltese is. Because there are EU nationals working in Malta and because we're doing this interview in English, doesn't mean we don't and we shouldn't take care of the Maltese language and we don't appreciate it. It's a value that we need to drive home, that we have to appreciate the Maltese language.
But also people need to vote if they're resident here.
Yes.
And they're entitled to vote.
Absolutely.
We're trying to convey the message to them too.
Yes, they're entitled to vote, they're encouraged to vote. There is obviously lots of EU nationals as well that have made Malta their home, so they would decide where to cast their vote. We are also very open to sharing our ideas for Malta, for EU nationals based here and building a future here as well.
Lee, it's been 20 years since Malta joined the EU. What's the significance of that?
We've seen obviously also an increase in standards across the board, from environment to other sectors. However, I think we need to be careful and continuously put the effort into making the EU, all its institutions, including the European Parliament, to work for Malta. So we always have to prioritize the interests of Malta and Gozo at the European Parliament and make all the resolutions and laws passed at all levels as much as possible most beneficial to Malta. It is not an easy job in getting all EU member states on the same page. There are lots of tough negotiations which happens every day, but is one that will leave fruition once we see how positively EU laws and resolutions are affecting the Maltese and Gozian population. Not voting means leaving someone else who can have very, very, very different agenda to what you have to vote in the way they want to and take Malta and Gozo in a direction that you don't want to. So a person has to study the candidates available on the ballot sheet, look at the proposals, see what they stand for, see what future they want to take Malta and Gozo in, and then make the informed decision and vote in the upcoming June elections.
How accessible are you and the rest of the team accessible to people?
Yes, we are doing our best to be very accessible. I've had a very good amount of messages on social media. Social media has made getting in touch somewhat easier. Nowadays, for several reasons, people prefer to chat, to text, sometimes even discussion points. The same applies in house visits. You find obviously all sorts of people with all sorts of life experiences and life stories to tell that I try and learn from every one of them. And the face-to-face is also very important and quite essential. So by email, by phone, house visits, social media, I'm doing my best for myself and the team to be most accessible, and those who are curious and haven't made contact, please do so.
Born to Maltese migrants in Australia in 1990, Bugeja Bartolo spent his childhood in the idyllic village of Bugeja in Malta. His early years were shaped by the local church and Rabat Scouts group, instilling in him values of community, environmental respect and discipline. A fascination with aviation and politics emerged early, further ignited when Malta joined the EU in 2004. Despite personal challenges, Lee pursued aerospace engineering at the University of Manchester, where he also led the Aerospace Society. After graduating, he returned to Malta in 2016, working in the engineering sector and building ties with the Nationalist Party. He earned a master's in aerospace engineering in 2022 and actively participated in the general election. Between 2022 and 2024, Lee worked for a leading aerospace defense company in Australia, staying connected with the Maltese community and political developments back home. In 2024, he returned to Malta and resumed his political activism, representing Malta in the European Parliament on the Nationalist Party ticket.
I encourage you all to vote in the upcoming 8 June elections. The European Union has the European Parliament obviously as one of the strongest institutions. It's a direct voice for all EU member states to participate in the exercise of democracy across Europe. Europe is going through challenging times with rising global tensions, which means it's more of a reason for every member state to put its best foot forward and elect members of the European Parliament from each member state that best represent the interests of the country as well as act in the best possible manner to unify Europe within the European Parliament.
We are focusing all our energy on reaching the people on all different categories, fronts. So we're spending a lot of time with youth, for instance, at the university, at MCAST. We're trying to target also people in their homes, knocking doors, doing home visits. We're organizing a series of events. We're very present on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok. But of course, what really counts then is the message, is what we can do for the country.
And what can you do for the country, please?
Yeah, indeed. I published 5 key priorities that I will be focusing on if elected as MEP with the people's support on the 8th of June. These 5 priorities circle around, first of all, the need to actually anticipate what the European Union is doing so that we adapt European laws to the needs of Malta as a nation. When you see how the EU works, the EU legislates on a variety of areas. It adopts over 200 laws every year. We need to make sure that these laws respond to our needs, that they are laws which help the Maltese people succeed in all areas of life. The second priority is youths. I want to open up opportunities for Maltese youths by using European resources, European programs, travel abroad, study abroad, and even opportunities in Malta, investment in innovation in all the new sectors. The third priority is Gozo. I am very keen on Gozo. I visit Gozo basically weekly, and Europe can do a lot more for Gozo, including for its connectivity, including by making a new fleet for the Gozo Channel running electric. This is what Denmark, Sweden, and even Greece are doing. We need to do it also in Malta. The fourth priority is the fight against corruption. We see corruption in Malta every day. It's disgusting. It's putting people down, and there's a loss of trust in politics itself. And I'll be putting in 21 years of experience in the EU institutions to make sure that we can win this fight with new methods, by using OLAF, the Office Against Fraud, the European Prosecutor's Office, and different EU legislation. The fifth point, the need for good implementation of our EU rights. So, for instance, we have our EU right for clean seas, right? But what do we have in Malta? We have sewage in our beaches. That's disgusting. That's not allowed. And MEPs, members of the European Parliament, the guys we should be selecting on the 8th of June, should be there to put scrutiny, to put pressure on government to make sure that EU laws and EU standards are upheld. The European Union has a very clear directive on public procurement, on how government spends our taxpayer money, on roadworks, on all the public works. The government is one of the biggest spenders in the island. We need to make sure that this spending is done according to the rules. It is not right now. There are breaches happening every day. As an MEP, instead, for instance, giving work to friends of friends instead of following the rules and opening up tenders for public participation, right? And getting the most competitive offer. And as a member of the European Parliament, I will be using the Union's own laws, the European Public Procurement Directive, to make sure that this is applied in Malta and the government renders account to how it spends your money as a taxpayer.
These are very difficult processes, all of them. I mean, they need a lot of work. How realistic do you think to be successful? How realistic is it?
Definitely, 21 years of experience with the European institutions where I have worked, negotiated, and worked closely with a lot of actors in the European Union, will help me achieve results. And I know what arguments and what levers you need to pull and to push for the European Union to help Malta. Definitely, I will not be alone. First of all, we need to make sure that the Nationalist Party elects at least 3 members of the European Parliament. And secondly, the Nationalist Party is member of the EPP, the European People's Party, which is the largest grouping in the European Parliament, with over 280 members of the European Parliament in the last legislature. This means that we have allies already, and I will be making my utmost to make more allies with sound arguments for the benefit of the Maltese people.
You're a lawyer by profession. You've spent a long time working in the European Union. Can you give us some more information about your background?
Yes, first of all, I come from the south of Malta, from the beautiful town of Zeytoun. I studied law, as you said, and then I joined the European Union in the institutions in Brussels when I was still very young, at 22 years of age. I happened to be the very first Maltese working for the EU institutions. And there I learned the beauty of the European project, but also the intricacies. The EU is a very complex entity. You have 3 main institutions. We need to collaborate for anything to come true. And my job in the EU is specifically this collaboration, how the institutions work together, how you can negotiate and bring together different countries to come with a common purpose. I have negotiated legislation on motor vehicles, cars, on cosmetics, on toys, on construction products, on professional qualifications, on gaming, which is a very important industry in Malta. And this has allowed me to gather a very sound but practical knowledge of the EU machinery. And now I am eager to make this work for the Maltese people. And then on a personal level, I am keen on gardening because I try to have also a little some of personal and family time. I am married to Mariella, who also works in translation and who is a social worker by profession. I am a father of 3 kids who are basically hooked on gaming, on tablets and computers, and I am also very keen on fish keeping. I have aquariums at home, and this is something I share with my kids, with my boys. We are particular, we are different, being an island. We need more connectivity with Europe, we need more European funds for our infrastructure, we need more opportunities for our youth. Gozo has its own identity and it has its own very specific needs. Life in Gozo, which I experience regularly because I am in Gozo very frequently. I dedicate at least 1 in 5 days of my campaign all over the last 5 years to be in Gozo, to meet the Gozitans, to speak to the Gozitans, to knock doors in Gozo, to visit the factories. Right now we have a lot of concern with the state of the health services in Gozo. I think it's not fair that the Gozitans feel and effectively experience second-class healthcare in Gozo with a lot of services which are not provided to them. And secondly, and most importantly, Gozo is conditioned with its insularity. It's a double insularity because Malta is already an island. So the least thing we should do is make sure that Gozo has a very good connection with Malta. And that means a new fleet for Gozo Channel. And I am proposing that as an MEP, I will work to get EU funds for a new electric fleet for Gozo Channel so that the Gozetans can be best served, also thanks to our EU membership. So we need a stronger voice in Europe to represent our needs and make sure that Europe adapts to our needs. If we do not stand up for the needs of the Maltese nation, okay, nobody will stand up for us.
Peter, speaking to people, I realize that quite a lot of them are quite unenthusiastic about voting for the EU. For those people watching us today, what would you say? How would you convince them to actually go physically and vote? And I'd like to also mention that we're doing this interview in English so that we can reach out to people who prefer the English language and who don't speak Maltese. There's many foreigners around us now too.
First of all, let's be careful because it might be a misnomer because we're calling this a European election. Effectively, it's an election for Malta because it's the opportunity for Malta to have its own representatives in the European Parliament. And we must make sure that we have a strong voice in Europe because Europe is deciding on a number of areas which have an effect on our daily lives. So my first call is make sure to have an impact on Europe by choosing the right people, not the people who are going there losing your time and your money. Secondly, if you do not vote and elect Maltese representatives who can speak for you with competence, who are prepared, who are representing your values and your interests, you will still have the Germans, the Poles, the Hungarians who will vote for you and bind you with European laws, because European laws will still be binding on Malta. So make sure to have an impact. And there is a plus to this election as well, because you can hit two birds with one stone. Because once you go to the school, to the ballot place to vote, you can still also vote for the local representatives at the local councils. So if you live in one of our towns and communities across Malta and Gozo, you have this double opportunity to choose your local council representative and your European Parliament representative.
Peter Agius is the first Maltese person to work for the European institutions in Brussels. He is now a senior officer of the European Parliament. Peter is a lawyer by profession, and his focus is European law. He has been instrumental in negotiations on pharmaceuticals, the internal market, online gaming, and consumer protection. Peter Agius is also an accomplished academic, having lectured on European law and politics. He has published extensively, and this includes a textbook on legal translation. Peter was a candidate in the 2019 European election, receiving over 10,000 first preference votes. He remains an active member of the Nationalist Party and the European People's Party. He is married with 3 sons and enjoys gardening and fish keeping.
I'm Peter Agius, and I am eager to represent you as your member of the European Parliament following the 8th June election. I will put at your disposal 21 years of experience working with the European institutions, where I have been in charge of negotiating a good number of EU laws. I will put at your service my deep knowledge of Maltese society, because I have been going around, knocking doors, visiting factories, visiting workshops, meeting people to understand what Malta and Gozo needs. I will be of scrutiny on the Maltese government on the way it is representing us in Europe. I will make sure that European standards, including environmental standards, are held and implemented here in Malta. I will open up opportunities for youths, for industry, for workers, through my knowledge of EU funding and EU policy. And most importantly, I will fight against corruption and abuse of your taxpayer money. I will try my best also to represent Gozo as an island with specific needs and make sure to anticipate and represent the national interest in all EU legislation which has an impact on our competitiveness and our needs as a Maltese nation and Maltese society. Thanks a lot for your support. Please get in touch if I can help through one of my social media channels. Thank you.
Signori, l-lum intqajna ma' żewġ kandidati tal-Parlament Ewropew għall-elezzjonijiet li Bugeja Bartolo u Peter Agius. L-intervisti saru bil-lingwa Ingliża għal dawk li jippreferu il-lingwa Ingliża jew li ma jitkellmux il-Malti. Jekk tixtiequ taraw intervisti ma' dawn il-kandidati, segwu Net Live u programmi oħrajn fuq Net Television. Grazzi, jekk għandkom xi kummenti batuhom permezz tal-WhatsApp fuq in-numru li jidher fuq l-iskrin, jiena Lea Hogg għal Net TV.